I'm Nardwuar, the Human Serviette from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Vancouver is awesome. I sing in a rock and roll band, The Evaporators. Also help out with another band called The Goblins. I do a radio show on CITR, FM 102, Cable 102, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, the University of British Columbia radio station. I've done the show for 22 years, since October 1987. Plus, I'm also a freelance contributor of video pieces to places like Much Music, and over the years I've also contributed to amazing video TV shows, pioneering ones, namely Soundproof from North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. That died in the early 90s, but I had to get a little plug there in for Soundproof. Plus, I'm really into putting out records. Yes, I run Nardwuar Records, and our most recent release is a split 7-inch between Andrew W.K. from New York and my band, The Evaporators. No, I've only lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, so maybe my judgment is a bit skewed. Actually, don't listen to anything that I'm saying. Anything that I'm saying has been said before. In fact, be scared of what I'm saying because I don't really know anything. Oh, I'd go anywhere in an instant if there was sort of fun and excitement that was happening. I love bands that go out there and tour. That's one thing. You can't just stick in Vancouver. And that's what makes Vancouver neat really about rock and roll. Because here we are in Vancouver, and we're kind of like a portal. You can go down the coast, you can go across Canada. Bands in Vancouver don't just stay here. A lot of other cities, they stay in their city. They think they can just make a living by sticking in their city. And they can. Like back east, you have the Toronto, the Breadbasket. You can play all the different towns there, like Ontario, like Windsor, Sudbury. You can go all over Ontario, but in Canada, specifically Vancouver, and people get mad when I say in Canada. Hi, it's Nardwuar from Canada, and I'm phoning Toronto. It's just I'm so pre-programmed to say that. I just totally love Canada. But in Vancouver, we're really into going to other places, and I think that makes Vancouver awesome as well, is that people in Vancouver don't necessarily think Vancouver's awesome, so they go to other places, discover the other places aren't as awesome, and then come back to the awesomeness that is Vancouver. So I think that's great about Vancouver, is we're always restless, we're always ready out there to go and explore, and I would go somewhere if I had the opportunity. I haven't done as much touring as other rock and roll bands that have been out there in the past, such as DOA that paved the way. Interestingly enough, if you read interviews with Black Flag from the early days, and even up to nowadays, they're always citing DOA and DOA's manager, Ken Lester, and the Subhumans manager, David Spanner, as helping to spread rock and roll. A lot of times, because the bands, well, believe it or not, the managers, David Lester and David Spanner of the Subhumans, had this giant contact list, and they would give it to bands, and then the bands knew where to tour. Because in the early days of punk rock, there was no circuit like there is now. There was no do-it-yourself type thing. You had to really totally do it yourself, and you had to find the numbers. So Vancouver bands always had the numbers. Vancouver people are always prepared. We know where it's at, we know the numbers, and I guess you can't just stay put. You have to go out there and find some good rock and roll action elsewhere. But we always do return to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Hopefully not to die, though. I'm lucky enough to do a radio show every Friday on CITR, 3:30 to 5 p.m. at 101.9 FM. And every time I show up at CITR, there's a huge wall filled with CDs. There's lots of vinyl and there's lots of 12 inches. So my favorite bands are always rotating. But I must say, since I do love vinyl, at this very moment, the last vinyl 7-inch that I got was by a band called the Isotopes from Vancouver. So they're my favorite because they just gave me some 7-inch vinyl, and I love the vinyl. I played it on my radio show, and then I passed it on to the music director of CITR, Luke Mead, for airplay. Probably it would be the Pointed Sticks from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, because it ties into so many different things. The Pointed Sticks covered the legendary 60s Seattle band, the Sonics. I bought a Sonics record at Zulu Records. Here we're at Neptune Records, but I bought it at Zulu Records. I eventually ended up seeing the Sonics for the first time in the company of Rob from Neptune Records. So the Pointed Sticks, Neptune Records, Zulu Records, and the Sonics all kind of come together to be my favorite band. Yes, the Sonics are from Seattle, but still, we're in the Northwest. We're in Cascadia, so the Sonics and Pointed Sticks. Probably driving in my dad's Datsun 510 that was later totaled by a guy when I was driving over Lionsgate Bridge. Speak about like a Vancouver experience. This guy was listening to Bob Seger, and he slammed on his brakes and then slammed right into the back of the Datsun 510. I remember he was listening to Bob Seger. Actually, I kind of like Bob Seger now, but I'm really kind of sad that he actually destroyed the car. I like Bob Seger's early work, the Bob Seger system, But I was driving in my dad's Datsun 510, and I was eating some cheese. It might have been Gouda cheese, and I remember trying to spit it out. So I opened up the window of the Datsun 510. Remember the Datsun 510 windows? They don't just like open all the way, they open just a tiny bit, and I spat the cheese out. Unfortunately, the cheese did not go all the way out onto the street. It kind of hit the side of the window, and it stuck there for years and years and years. So that's kind of my favorite memory growing up in Vancouver, is cheese stuck to the side of a Datsun 510. And of course, later on in the evaporators, we had a song, I got a disease, I'm addicted to cheese.